I think it's important to have a money plan.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody, especially in the US, it's more money driven than anywhere else that I lived. Especially here, I think it's very important to have a money plan. But also, if money was no object, what would your plan be then? I mean, ideally, your money plan and your what if money was no object, both plans go hand in hand, then it's beautiful.
Welcome to the Helpfluencer podcast. I'm your host, Ted Bernard. Why do a podcast about influencers who help? Well, because we're Helpfluencers. We talk about the future of work and the disruption of the 40-hour work week. The 9-to-5 is becoming obsolete. Professionals want a more flexible work schedule, and technology enables that. We talk to people who have done it well and are now influencers in their space, hence Helpfluencers. We're building a community of creative professionals who believe in change, growth, and collaboration. Thank you for tuning in to Helpfluencer Podcast. On the last episode of 2019, I'm excited to have Sasan Tabib. Sasan is a multi-dimensional entrepreneur. He's a founder of Europe's #1 semiconductor distribution company. He's a movie producer, coach of a football team in Germany. Now he's turning his ability to build powerhouse companies into leadership coaching. I'm excited to close out the Helpfluencer podcast in 2019 because this opportunity gives me the momentum to grow in 2020. I'm honored to have Sasan on the show today because he's actually one of my original mentors. Sasan is responsible for me getting a passport. In this episode, we'll talk about how community leads to success, what today's leaders should know about building a successful business, and tips for 2020. Welcome, Sasan. I feel like throughout, life, I've just met people in like such unique circumstances, and I think ours is like incredibly unique. So it was like
Definitely.
New York, summer 2012.
Yeah. No, I think actually, your story is one of the stories I keep telling people of how I meet people and then I see a potential and I try to have them get the best out of themselves. And your story, of course you have your own perspective on how we met, but I think it's more fascinating from my angle because I remember we were in New York and trying to produce this movie, Charlie, Trevor, and a girl, Savannah, and we were up in this amazing building, and we had a full floor, and we had I think 60 people on the payroll.
Yeah.
And you were in the back of this office working. You were the first one in the office. You were the last one to leave the office. And, I had all these people on my payroll. And I remember, and I don't know even if you know this part of the story. So around, 3 weeks into it, I had to sign the checks for the people, the paychecks, right?
Yeah.
And you had kind of left the impression on me just by the sheer fact that you were the first one in the office and the last one to leave. So when I got to sign the checks for the people, I kind of and everybody was making a different wage, right? There was some people that were making $100 a day, some were making 75, some were making 150. And I was curious how much you were making. So when it got to the point that I signed, and I kind of remembered your name, I knew it was Ted, and so I looked for a check for Ted that I had to sign, but at the end of it, there was no check for Ted. And I asked the accountant, or basically her name was Nikki. She was like the production manager, basically. And I was like, Nikki, what about that guy that sits there in the back and, he's here? She goes, which one? I'm like, I don't know. I think the guy's name is Ted. He's always there in the back, doing all these things and comes early, leaves late. And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? The guy's here every day. He doesn't get paid? So then we looked up and we found out that you're actually not getting paid and that you're putting in all these hours, for free, basically, just because you're curious and you want to learn about making movies. And that left a big impression on me. And then I even dig deeper and found out not that you're not only not getting paid, it's also that you have a lot of expenses coming to New York and have to pay everything out of your pocket. So that even impressed me more.
Yeah.
And that's the moment where I decided, I like that guy. This is the attitude I love in people. When they're curious, when they, are willing to sacrifice for their goals. And that's the moment where I, said, okay, let me look at this guy. Then I started giving you more tasks, my personal tasks. I remember my family was coming from Europe. So I kind of made you my personal travel agency. So you had to, book everything for them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Such a great job. And then actually my son came over And it's also for me always good to see good people you can recognize when they get along with animals and with small kids.
Yeah.
So my son got really uh, along with you very well.
Yeah.
So that's the moment I decided to take you under my wings, and from then on, I think you started working after we finished the movie. Then you worked for a US company first.
Yeah.
But then my sales manager back then fired you because he didn't think you were doing good in sales. But nevertheless, I knew there was a big potential in you, and so that's when I decided to, okay, it's not working out with my sales manager in the US office, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the potential. So then I took you to Dubai, and you did a great job. And I remember how you slowly climbed the ladder over there, finalizing by becoming the general manager of the Dubai operations. And here we are today.
Yeah, that was exciting, and I feel like it's awesome how that kind of goes full circle.
Right.
Like just like coming from New York. Well, I really think the start is like the California, and then like going to Dubai, going all around the world. Like I really appreciate it, and I always tell people like I'm so grateful for the opportunity because like literally I did not have a passport, and I was trying to figure out how to make that work. And then from there to like just kind of travel all over Europe and kind of all over the world for Chip One and for everything that you've been doing. I mean, it's a testament to your leadership ability because like I didn't even know I could last in Dubai for that long. I remember the first thing I said, I was like, oh, I'll be there for only like 6 months or 12 months, and I ended up kind of staying for a long time. So and in this season we're talking about community, and I feel like you did a really good job between the movie, bringing your family, bringing everyone together for the movie, and then I mean how you started Chip One, right, with a group of friends. And I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that story, how community kind of helped you get from where you were, your story, like from your humble beginnings to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. I think so my whole story basically starts actually in the US. I mean, although I was raised up in Germany at the age of 18, I had some setbacks, personal life setbacks and sports setbacks. School was finished, so I ended up coming to California, and it's like now 23 years ago where I came with nothing. And it's kind of great always to be back here in the Golden State, is working in a restaurant. I didn't wash dishes, so I cannot really fulfill that cliche, but nevertheless, from then on I amazingly became a waiter.
Yeah.
And from then on I ended up in a microelectronic company doing purchasing. From then on doing sales in a different one, and that's where I brought on my 3 childhood friends from Germany, Volkan, Bobby, Damon, and then we all went back to Germany and opened up our own company in 2001, which is now almost 20 years into it. And together we built it into as you said it, as one of the leading semiconductor distributors in the world. And speaking of community, I think that alone nothing can be accomplished. So you need to have a great team around you that supports you, that you grow together with.
Yeah, that's awesome. So right now you have a few things you have your hand into, and I think all of them involve community and leadership, right? So Chip One, like you have to be a leader over like what now you're like 150, 200 employees,
almost 200 worldwide,
all over the world. And like sort of how do you manage like running that? You also have your soccer club, which I feel like is the biggest leadership, because I mean when you're paying people, like that's a innate, hey, I'm your leader. Yeah. But in a soccer club, you have to motivate people to go beyond what they're normally doing. Mm-hmm. And then you also have the film projects, and kind of like what I'm like really still like I don't believe is the building. You're building a building. Yeah. And I think the whole idea of that is like you're having a place for your community to live. So
exactly, yeah. Yeah, it was always our dream to have our headquarters, and we're aiming to have it ready when we have our 20th anniversary in 2021. And yeah, it should be ready by then. But as you mentioned, looking back at my life, is like I've kind of always embraced the idea of leadership and challenged myself on the leadership questions, and try to be a good leader of no matter what I do.
Yeah.
And which area. And now also, as you said it, at the end now, people call it coach. I wouldn't call myself a coach. What I love to do is talk to people and inspire them. Yeah. Inspire them and motivate them to do the best, to get the best out of themselves. Yeah. So one day when you're old, sitting on a bench in some kind of park and watching the birds eat, that you can look back at your life and say, well, you know what? I did my best. Yeah. And every day I challenged myself to change myself. And so that's fulfills me with a lot of joy when I meet people and they like kind of give me a hug and say, hey man, thanks for everything you were to me, thanks for helping me of becoming the best version of myself.
Yeah. So like in terms of like building leaders, I mean, what do you think is like, I mean, cause like on a soccer field or a football pitch, you have to like, you know, like really it's like pushing people like mentally, like really communicating with them, like how much you have to like their growth potential.
Yeah.
What's your strategy? What's your biggest, like, how do you do that in like in the past 20 years? How have you been like from like chip one and, you know, motivating people to become like top salespeople, to like the soccer pitch, getting people to like, you've had like, I've seen on the gram, you got a lot of victories under your belt.
Yeah, we kind of doing really good with the soccer team. I think, Ted, it's about mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I think what differs, you know, leaders, I mean, you can say leaders, but it goes pretty much hand in hand. The mindset that you need to be a good leader, I think, goes hand in hand with the mindset you do need to become successful in general in life. And I'm not referring to success as just financial success. Success can mean to every individual something else, right? But in general, I would say it's all about the mindset you have. And there's a few parameters that I try to give people to take it on their way. Starting with the first one, I kind of have this concept where I tell people, you know, play Jeopardy, and they look at me and like, what is he talking about, right? And it's kind of a, you know, a funny way of putting what I mean is because if you look at the quiz shows that went throughout the history, they were all looking for the right answers, right? While Jeopardy was the only quiz show that was looking for the right question. So that's what I mean. When I talk to people is I first tell them, you know what? Because people also on Instagram, they write me, you know, how do I become successful? How do I make money? How do I build a company? You know, and the first thing I tell them is before you start asking me questions, you know, to find answers from an external person, first start finding the right questions that matter to your life. Okay? Starting with the basic ones. What is success to me? Is it financial success? Is it having a family? Is it starting a business? You know, or one of the questions that inspired me actually a lot is, what if money was no object? What would I do with my time and my life then? And that's, I think, a very important question that you should know.
Yeah, I've heard you ask that a few times.
Yeah, I actually, no, actually, that's one of my favorite ones, and because I think it's important to have a money plan.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody, especially in the U.S., it's more money driven than anywhere else that I lived. Especially here, I think it's very important to have a money plan. But also, if money was no object, what would your plan be then? I mean, ideally, your money plan and your what if money was no object, both plans go hand in hand, then it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Because then it means you found something that you would do if money was no object, and you're still making money with it. So that's, of course, an ideal scenario that maybe not a lot of people can find in life, but if you do, that's great.
So a good transition to that is, when would you recommend for someone to be an entrepreneur versus an employee?
That's so first of all,
because I know that's a loaded question, because like obviously the whole idea, like my perspective is that I believe that the future work is no longer a 9-to-5, but you obviously have like 200 employees that don't
generalize I wouldn't like put that as a general statement, Ted. I think, let's put it this way, we had almost all companies in the world were running on 9-to-5.
Yeah.
I agree with you that it's going to become less, but I don't think it's obsolete as a total thing, because you still need business hours where companies can communicate and do all kinds of stuff. But I do agree with you that especially throughout technology and the internet and everything, right? I mean, imagine 10 years ago, or no, but 20 years ago, you had to be in your office to work, right?
Yeah.
There was no internet. You needed access to all the files, everything. So obviously you need to be in the workplace. Of course, now everything is in a cloud, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be in the office, right? You're connected via voice over IP. You can talk to your colleagues and everything. So the necessity of sitting in an office and environment has become less, but I don't think it's obsolete as a total. So I would only agree to it.
Yeah, and so when do you recommend someone to make that decision, or like how would you gauge
to become an entrepreneur or not?
Yeah, or as an independent contractor? Because I think like I'm a firm believer that especially as creatives, like you shouldn't really be stuck in one place. So
Of course.
So my thought is just like when do you, if you see someone in your office now, when you see they have leadership ability, do you recommend them to like, hey, you should like think about being an entrepreneur, or you should like continue to work for my company and be an entrepreneur, which is, for the record, that's what I feel like I was. Like at Chip One, that's like one of the things I really liked was that I felt like I kind of pitched you ideas, and then you're like, yeah, I think that's a good one, or I don't think that's a good one, and then we kind of went with them. So that's just my question. Just like,
so I never heard that term. So that's what you call entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I'm learning something
yeah,
new
yeah.
today.
So it's just someone that works within your company that's pretty much like disruptive.
Okay, I think one of the key abilities, right, that you need to have to be an entrepreneur, and I always refer again, I have these funny analogies, but it helps people to remember when I talk about Jeopardy. Now I even see sometimes people on the street in Germany going like, hey, Jeopardy, Jeopardy concept. So I at least, or even the players of my team, they don't tell me, but they listen to all my Instagram stuff. And one of the other things is I always say it in the terms of, there was this movie, it was called 50 First Dates.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Did you watch it?
No, I don't think
It's
so.
with Adam
I've heard of it
Sandler
before,
and
yeah.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
And a whole story about it. But there is this one guy we meet, and actually it's a very sad story, but since it's a comedy, we can also refer to it on this occasion. Is like, there's this guy and his name is 10 Seconds Tom.
Yeah.
So the poor guy, after he has a 10 seconds memory. So after 10 seconds, it's already gone. It's forgotten. So he comes into the picture, introduces himself. Hi, my name is Tom.
Yeah.
10 seconds conversation. And after 10 seconds, he's like, hey, my name is Tom.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm saying this is I got this crazy or sick ability that if frustrating situations happens to me, it takes me 10 to 15 seconds to deal with them
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah.
Negative, frustrating, anger moments, really, I have this crazy ability of not letting that get into my way. And you know what's even important? You want to be an entrepreneur? You know what it takes? It takes great decision making all day long. Because as an entrepreneur, you have nobody else to take the decision for you. You can have 100 people give you all the data and give you all the advice, but you're the one that's got to take the shots.
Yeah.
So in order to take good decisions, you need to have a clear mind. And one of the worst things that you can have is if you feel angry or you're frustrated with something, and you let that anger and frustration take control over your mind, because then you're not going to make good decisions.
Yeah.
So when I look at people, I really look at this ability. How do they deal with frustrating situations? Are they somebody that after 2 hours they keep still complaining about something negative that happened this morning? Then for me it's an obvious thing to, you're not going to be a good entrepreneur, you're not going to be successful, right? Well, then you have other people that really can deal with negativity, and that's good. Because let's look at it. What does an entrepreneur do? Even me, like, when do my employees come to me? When they have a problem, when there is a solution needed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When
They
there's
need you to
dramas,
take a decision. Yeah,
and you
for
need
sure.
to take decision, right? So if you cannot, like, so during the day, I think I don't count them, but I think I have to, take decisions on negative stuff for sure 50% of my day. So if I'm not able to, wash it out of my system, the negativity, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I've heard you talk. It's funny because I've heard you say the decision stuff often, and like it's crazy because like I take the like 5 years in Dubai and I look back and like I start seeing 2020 like vision, like hindsight, like I'm like, oh, that's what like that really like, kind of meant, and that's what like how to handle those situations, because like I started encountering them, and then I was like, oh, okay, cool, now I know what to do with them because I've heard that before, and now I'm just applying it. So going in terms of decisions and all this stuff, I mean, a big question is routine, and it's interesting because we were just talking about social media. And how like your whole day isn't glamorous. So you could pull up in the Lambo, people can see you with the office and all these companies and all the things that you've accomplished, but your day to day is not as romantic. And I kind of wanted to like understand like what is your like habits that kind of like lead to your success.
Good question. I never looked at it that way. My habit is, first of all, I need to shower in the morning. I don't understand people that can get out of the house without showering. I could never imagine
basics,
that.
guys. Basics.
So first of all, I need that 5 minutes of water pouring onto my head to, boot up my computer, basically.
Yeah.
Then I love it to get to the office and drink my coffee.
Yeah.
And start looking at the emails, the challenges, the tasks, and, keep going with it. Of course, you know, you have to-do lists, you have tasks that you have to accomplish, and I think it's very important that you set yourself goals, but I think they should be you know, countable and achievable. If you set your goals too high, it's good to have high goals, right?
Yeah.
But that's maybe for the mid or long term. But I think it's important to have what they called in English attainable
Yeah.
and
Yeah, attainable
achievable
goal. Yeah.
goals for the short period. Maybe if it's only for the day,
Yeah.
even something small, you know, and for the week, for the month. I think that's very important. And what I love to do is you should document. Like one of the craziest things I did was when I was 18, and I lost that letter at some point, but I was sitting in the plane. I had no money, right? And I was coming to the States, and I didn't know what was expecting me. I mean, you gotta imagine, I'm 18 years old. I'm flying into a different country, no money, no job, nothing, right?
Yeah.
But I still wrote myself on that flight. I wrote myself a letter of how my life would look in 5 years.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, I did. And you know what's crazy? I lost sight of that letter, but actually like 4 years into it, I found it. And it was crazy. I had really achieved a lot of those goals that I was talking about in the letter,
Yeah.
right?
They talk about the power of writing it down.
Exactly, documentation, you know?
Yeah.
And I did the same thing actually once with the sales stats. It was crazy. I was so I had this microelectronics job. I was 2 months into it, and my sales, just to give you an idea, was, I don't remember it, but I would say it was maybe $10,000, right?
Yeah.
And one day it was starting my 3rd month at this big microelectronics company, and I was styling my hair, and I was looking in the mirror, and I said, "You're gonna do $191,000 in sales," which was crazy because it was 20 times the figure
Yeah.
that I had done the previous month.
Yeah.
But you know what? I ended up that month with $191,000 in sales,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. But these are like the things you keep remembering. So
Of course. Yeah, they get ingrained. So one quote that I really like that you said a while back to me was, "Don't leave for today. No, don't leave for tomorrow what you could do today."
Oh yeah,
And-
that's a German saying, by the way.
Yeah. So I
Should I say how it's in German?
Yeah,
so you
let's
have
do
some
it.
international stuff on this podcast. Was du kannst heute besorgen, das verschiebe nicht auf morgen.
Someone just died. So yeah, I like that quote. And one of the questions, one of the things is like, what are some of the biggest pitfalls? Like, what are the things that people fall into, and they're like, that's like a leads to their failure.
Laziness.
Yeah.
Laziness is very bad.
And the other day you talked about pessimism.
Pessimism. Oh, I mean, in general, negative energy. I mean, there is some people that have tremendous negative energy and they still become successful, and I wonder sometimes how. But I think the probability of becoming successful goes sharply and rapidly down the more you've been driven by negative energy or emotions. It won't work on the long term.
Yeah.
So I just love people that are positive, that, as you're doing, right? You're talking about change, embrace change, be curious, get up every morning, and you know, one quote I refer to is, challenge yourself every day to change yourself every day. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah. So a thing that like a lot of people are like talking about in entrepreneurship and solopreneurship and people who are like freelancing is self-care.
Yeah.
And I think that's a like really important topic because like a lot of people that we listen to online between Gary Vee and Grant Cardone that we've been talking about a little bit, they, you know, push on how hard you have to work. And we know it's important, but like when do you think is like the limit? When do you think like you have to like just like really...
Well, it's important. In one of my videos, we talk about hard work, right?
Yeah.
And so there's one of my first bosses, actually, you remember him, Max.
Yeah.
He actually told me something nice. He said, hard work ain't gonna cut it. Because if we look at the creatures on our planet, the creature working the hardest is the donkey.
Yeah.
And let's face it, it doesn't make it far in the food chain.
Yeah.
So hard work alone ain't gonna cut it, right? So you need to spice that up with a lot more features to be successful, right? And one of them is good decision making. And let's talk about like money. I sometimes wonder how hard people work for the money to build up something, and then how stupidly they start blowing and wasting the money they worked hard for.
Yeah.
and that's one of the key factors, like being able to handle money and financials. And you see, we're right now here in LA, and I think one thing the US is known for, that it's a great country of lots of immigrant success stories. And I think one of the things, Teddy, when you look at all these successful immigrant stories, you know, of families coming from all over the world with lots of children settling down here in the US, and you know, they all work hard, so hard for the money. But you know what they all got in common the first few years? These families, they don't spend their money on dumb shit.
Yeah.
They collect it, and that's what the base of the success is, because they don't get into this consumption driven atmosphere, I would call it, that surrounds in general the society, especially in the US.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a key ability to have.
Yeah. And just like, how sustainable is it? Like, when you building a company, building projects, working on projects, what's the lifespan that you give it until you're like, all right, man, you know, because you've been doing Chip One for 20 years now. So how much longer do you plan on doing it? You know, how much, like, when do you know when to like transition to the next thing? I mean, you know, you have the soccer club.
To be honest, yeah, I mean, I get up every day challenging myself, whether being in Chip One or being a different project. I mean, or maybe even improving one of the languages I speak or anything. So in general, I try to push myself to my limits every day, right? I mean, but you know, I'm growing older, so I'm becoming also a little lazy. Yeah. But besides that,
you say lazy, but I remember, like, I actually I remember one of the things that kept me like really going is like our first year in Dubai, and I remember we're at the office till like 10 p.m. Yeah. And I was like, yo, like, we're still here. And like, I was like, man, the guy driving the Lamborghini is like not complaining. He's hanging out, chilling at the office. So I said,
no. And that's actually one thing that I talk to people. So you see, I mean, you saw my office, but it's always fascinating for people that come from the outside. So I'm sitting there. I have 6 monitors. I got my regular phone, and I've got 2 more cell phones on the side. And so basically, and I get around 600 emails a day, as you remember. So I'm sitting in between these monitors, phones, phone calls, emails, and then also the salespeople, the accounting department, and you know, I'm sitting out on the floor. So I have this hyperaction all day long, right? And people come and they look at me and they go like, man, you must be stressed out. This would kill me, all this stress. And I'm like, you know, stress? This is not stress. I love this. And you know why? I tell the people, they say, you work so hard. And I'm like, this is not hard work. Hard work is when you have to work on the construction site. Yeah. That's hard work. Me sitting in the office and taking decisions, I don't think that's hard work. And I think you need to have this attitude towards work and towards life in order to be successful, that you're not a complainer. Yeah. I appreciate everything I do. And I think that's also a message be sent out to everybody is appreciate. As long as you're healthy, yeah, you got it.
And so what keeps you going on the days that you feel like it's too much?
A lot of stories out of my own life and out of my own experience that showed me. There's an English saying that goes, when going gets tough, the tough gets going. Yeah. And actually, I believe in it, that only within those moments that going gets tough and you like fight back, that's, I think, what makes the difference. I don't know if you have time, but there's a great inspirational story that I always like to share at this point. Is when I was 16 years old, we had this soccer coach, and he was a really tough German coach, as you can imagine. Yeah. And he kind of was at the same time a father figure to us. So one day he gathered all of us, and he looked at us and he goes, so who of you wants to be a professional player? Of course, we're all like, yeah, me, you know. Okay, let's see what you're capable of doing against an opponent. So he put us up in this match type of situation, 10 versus 10, and 45 minutes, and all of us, of course, being young and eager, we wanted to show him, hey, I got it. So we really fought hard. 45 minutes into it, it was a very hot, sunny day. He gathered all of us. He goes, so who of you wants to be a pro now? And, you know, kind of lost some energy, but still a few. I was like, me. He goes, okay, so I saw what you can do against an opponent. Now I want to see how you perform against the clock. So he made us run 12 minutes of full speed. It's called the Cooper test. I don't know if you heard about it. You have to accomplish 8 laps of 400 meters each, the regular track, and it's just pure torture and pure pain, and your lung hurts, your skin hurts, everything hurts, and most of us didn't accomplish it. I did accomplish it, and I felt like the moment I ran into the finish line, I felt like, dude, I won the Olympic Games. It was like one of the happiest moments of my life, and I fell down and so happy, and we thought, wow, great, man, now we're gonna be pros. Then he gathered again all of us, and some of us couldn't even walk anymore. We're dead. So he looks at us and goes, okay, so who of you wants to be a professional player? Barely, we couldn't even talk or raise even our hands. And he goes, I see. You know what? Now we're gonna do twice 100 meter sprint, twice 200 meter sprint, 300 meter sprint, 400 meter, 300, 200, 100. And we looked at him, we were like, Coach, we're dead. We can't even walk anymore. And he goes, you see, one thing, you can outperform an opponent and you can win against the clock. But if you're not able to win that ultimate battle against yourself, you're not gonna get anywhere in life. And the special thing about that battle is it takes place in your darkest moments. There is no applause, there is no audience, and it's a fight that you have to do on your own. And then he just left us. He didn't even watch who was gonna do that.
That's like a thing out of the movies.
I know. It's like in the movies, but it was. And that story kept inspiring me. And I'm telling you one thing, I never became a professional player, but that story stuck to my mind, and I love to share the story, hoping that it will inspire other people as well, because only the days when it's really tough and you find to get, those are the days where you're gonna get the biggest and best rewards.
Awesome. Wow. So, I mean, what recommendations would you give people in and out of the office that you want? Like, what are some like practical steps people could take, kind of next steps they could take from this? Like, after listening to this podcast, like, what are some practical next steps you would recommend? Or like books you would recommend, movies you would recommend? We're always just trying to give people like kind of tips that they could like carry.
To be honest, when it comes to books, I remember, Ted, you used to read so many books, and I always see on Instagram these ads, like Elon Musk is reading 20 books a day, or Bill Gates used to read 10 books a day. I don't believe in that. I swear, I don't think Elon Musk or Bill Gates have the time to read that many books. But hey, maybe it might be the case. For my case, I can say I don't have the time to read books. I rather look at YouTube videos, really short. I love short and powerful content of like short time span of maybe 3 to 10 minutes. That's what I prefer. Because I like to pick it up fast. So books, I have no recommendations. I would recommend always that video of that inspired me. You remember the If Money Was No Object from Alan Watts? Okay, cool. Alan Watts.
And then, I mean, obviously they could just look at your stuff too, right? So you could be found, and I think we could like kind of like wrap it up and close it. But like I think at Sasan Tabib is your social media.
Tabib,
Your website is sasantabib.com, which I think we should put like a leadership academy on there or something, like where people could sign up to like, have like.
But I promised myself that I would never charge any money for this inspirational thing I'm doing, because some people do philanthropic actions. That was for me the moment where I said, hey, if there's something good I can do, is these experiences I had or whatever, if I can inspire young people or any person to do the best out of themselves, I would love to. I'm
gonna brainstorm around that, but I feel like just follow his website, sasantabib.com, him on social media, and I'm sure like in 2020 you're gonna find like a lot of leadership kind of coaching or leadership inspirational stuff on there that we're gonna work on. Sasan, I really appreciate you coming on. I feel like there's just so many gems that you dropped here today.
Thank you very much, Ted, for having me over.
To the Helpfluencer podcast, you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, and go to helpfluencers.com for like the show notes and all our resources. Thank you.